Hey guys, in this video, we're going to take a look at how to set up your own file sharing server using PwnDrop on Linode. So this video is sponsored by Linode. So if you'd like to follow along with this tutorial, head down to the description where you'll find a link that will get you $100 in free credit on Linode for 60 days. So if you're not familiar with PwnDrop, it is a self-deployable file hosting service for sending out red teaming payloads or securely sharing your private files over HTTP and WebDAV. This is very, very simple to set up. It's very useful. I've actually got it set up on my home server, and I understand that not everybody has the resources for a home server, and that's why I want to show how to set this up on Linode. So with that said, let's first jump over to Linode's dashboard. So here is our dashboard. And the first thing we want to do is actually set up a Linode for this instance. So what we'll do is we'll come up to the top right where it says create Linode. And then what we want to do is actually head over here to Marketplace. And then what we're going to do is scroll down and look for Docker, which will be right here. We're going to go ahead and click on that. And then we're going to scroll down. And basically at this point, we can hide the advanced options. There's really nothing in there that we need for the sake of this setup here. For our image, we're going to select an image here. We've got the option for Ubuntu 20.04 LTS, Debian 10 or Debian 11. I'd say we just go with Debian 11 at this point. In our region, we're going to want to pick something that's close to us. I'm going to select Dallas, Texas, because that is the closest one to me. And then over here, you've got some options on how you want to handle this. I like to go with kind of a cheap setup. Basically, I would choose either the 1 or 2 gig setup, depending on how much RAM you think you'll need for this. I'm just going to go with the 1 gig setup here. And then we'll scroll down, and we're going to give this a name. We're going to call this PwnDrop Tutorial. I'm not going to add any tags. We don't need that. But I will put in a root password. So if you've got SSH keys available to your system, you can use those. I'm actually on a different system, so these keys aren't going to work. So I'm just going to skip that for right now. We're not going to worry about a VLAN. We don't need to do that. We are going to do backups if you want to do that, and a private IP address. Those are both super handy to have. So let's scroll back up and see if there's anything else in here we might need. I don't think there is, so what we'll do is we'll just scroll down to the bottom and click on Create Linode. We'll give this a moment to load up and then take us to the next screen. And then what we want to do is actually set up our domain name. So while this is provisioning and whatnot, let's actually head over right here to where it says Domains. And we're going to create a domain. So we'll click the button right up here at the top right. We're going to put our domain name in. In this case, I'm going to use tutorialserver.xyz. My email address is going to go right here. And then for the insert default records, what I want to do is actually insert the default records for one of my Linodes. In this case, it's going to be the PwnDrop tutorial, and we'll click on Create Domain. So here we can see that we've got the information that we need as far as NS records are concerned. We can see that our name servers need to point to ns1.linode.com and ns2 and ns3 and ns4 and ns5. So what we want to do is head over to wherever we've purchased or wherever we manage our domains and make sure that our name server records are correct. Now, I'd like to use Porkbun for my domains, but you can get your domains wherever. And here you can see under the authoritative name servers, I've switched this to ns1 through ns5.linode.com. Now, the thing to keep in mind with DNS changes like this is that they can, in some rare cases, take up to 48 hours to propagate. So make sure that you do this kind of in advance, but just know that it could take a while for this DNS stuff to kick in. So while it's doing its thing, we can actually head back over to our server, take a look at our Linodes. So our PwnDrop tutorial is running. We've got an IP address right here. Last backup, nothing there yet. So let's open this up by clicking there. And what we're going to do is just click right here next to the SSH root at our IP address. So what I want to do is just paste in that command, that SSH root at our IP address, and hit enter. Hey, this is the first time you've connected to the server. Are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I am. That's exactly what I want to do here. So I'm going to type in yes and hit enter. And I'll put in the password that I gave the system when I first spun up that Linode instance. And here we are logged in and ready to go. So what I'm going to do is actually clear my screen with Control-L, and I'm going to minimize this browser window here just so that it's not confusing us in the background. And then over here in this file editor, this basically notepad, what I'm going to do is bring this down just a little bit. like so. And this way we can kind of see what's going on here. What we're going to use is a docker compose.yml file so that we can deploy multiple services simultaneously. In this case, we're going to have a version 3 docker compose. We're going to declare a network right here, and that network is going to be Nginx Proxy Manager. You could name that whatever you'd like, but if you change this, make sure that you change it in all of the appropriate highlighted places further down in the docker compose file. The first service that we're going to deploy is Nginx Proxy Manager. We're going to use JC21's latest version of that. Our restart policy is going to be unless stopped. Basically, that way if the server reboots, this will automatically come back up. Our container name is going to be Nginx Proxy Manager, and this is going to use ports 80, 81, and 443. Basically, 80 and 443 are going to be for traffic, so that it knows kind of how to redirect things. And port 81 will be for our dashboard. Basically, Nginx Proxy Manager is going to give us the chance to kind of direct our traffic on our Linode, as well as handle all of our SSL certificates. Below that, this one is kind of optional. I like to have it just in case I want to look at logs or anything and have a nice graphical user interface. And to do that, I like to use Portainer. That, of course, runs on ports 9000 and 8000. 8000 is kind of the underlying port where things happen. 9000 is how you actually access the dashboard. So that's what that's for. Again, we've got a container name of Portainer. The restart policy is set to always. That's just kind of a default thing for that. You could change this to unless stopped if you wanted to. Completely up to you. Below that, we've got a couple of volumes, one for the Docker socket. That's how it's going to control things on your Docker setup. And then we've also got a Portainer data volume where it's going to store the information regarding Portainer. We've got an image of Portainer's CE latest. And again, we're going to attach this to the Nginx Proxy Manager network. Next, we've got kind of the star of the show here. This is going to be our PwnDrop image, and we're going to use Linux Server's PwnDrop. Linux Server does a great job of maintaining their different images that are built by other developers. They make sure that things are secure and safe and up to date. So that's why we're going to use Linux Server's version here. Of course, we've got a container name of PwnDrop. We've got some environmental variables of a PUID, which is a user group, and then we've got a user and then a group ID, rather. I was combining words there, but a user ID and a group ID, you can leave those both at 1000 for our setup here. We've got a time zone of America/Denver. Of course, you can make that your local time zone, of course. And then a secret path. Basically, the way this works is if you type in the URL to get to your PwnDrop instance, but you don't actually put in the secret path, it won't load anything. So that's what that's for. This is kind of our secret backend entrance into our self-hosted service here. We're going to put this on port 8080. You could change this, but there's really no need to. Again, we've got a restart policy unless stopped, and we're going to attach this to our Nginx Proxy Manager network. Now below that, we've declared a PwnDrop volume and a Portainer data volume and an Nginx Proxy volume, or an Nginx Proxy Manager volume and a Let's Encrypt volume. Basically, those are all the places where things are going to get stored for their specific data set. We've got to declare all of those volumes down here, and that's basically all we've done at the very bottom there. So this is what our Docker Compose looks like for this setup. So what we're going to do is actually copy this like so, and head back over to our console window here. I'm going to go ahead and minimize all of this other stuff. And what I want to do is do nano docker-compose.yml, like so, and just go ahead and paste that in. All of that looks exactly like it did in our file editor. So what we can do next is press Control-O and Enter and Control-X to save and exit the setup here. So the next thing we want to do now that we've created our Docker Compose is actually deploy our Docker containers, our services, via that Docker Compose. So maybe this one. There we go. So first it created our volumes, and now it's going to go through and pull everything that it needs to pull. So we'll give this a couple of minutes to do its thing, and then once it's up and running, we'll actually get logged into Portainer first, just so we can kind of get an idea of what's going on with our other services. Okay, so here we are, just literally a couple of minutes later. We've got Nginx Proxy Manager up and running, we've got PwnDrop up and running, and we've got Portainer up and running. So the next thing we want to do, like I said, is actually get logged into Portainer. So to get logged into Portainer, what we're going to do is copy this IP address right here, paste that in there and go to port 9000, like so. And there we go. Now we're going to log into Portainer. Now, I highly recommend that you change the username from admin to something else. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And then, of course, you're going to enter a password, enter it twice, and then create user. So because this is a new instance of Portender, what we're going to do is just click on Get Started, and that's just it. So we're going to go ahead and click on Dismiss that. We're going to open this up. We're going to take a look at our containers. We've got PwnDrop, Portender, and Nginx Proxy Manager up and running. So we've got some options. We could click over here first. Oops. See, I'm glad I did that. I'm going to close that. What I'm going to do is actually go over here to Environments, go to Local, and then what I'm going to do is type in 173.255.201.34 because that's the IP address of our Linode, and I'll click Update Environment. Now we can come back to our containers and click on port 81 right over here for Nginx Proxy Manager. And so next thing we want to do is actually get logged in. So this is going to be admin@admin.com. And change me is the password. Oops, I lied. Oh, it's admin@example.com and change me. I was close. Now we can sign in. So it wants us to go ahead and change this, so we'll do that now. And then we can click on Save now that we've changed our password. So at this point, we basically got Nginx Proxy Manager set up. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually come over here and take a look at PwnDrop. Now, if I click this, basically nothing good is going to happen. It's just going to take me over to this Rickroll video, again, because we didn't put in the right information. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to copy the link address. I'm going to paste that in there. I'm going to put in dbtech and hit enter. So now it wants us to create an account. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we'll click on Create Account. And then we'll get logged in. Okay, so here we've got our dashboard. Of course, at this point, nothing is secure, nothing's under domain name, everything's being accessed by IP addresses. And of course, this is one of those things that you'll want to keep secret. You don't want this IP address getting out there so that people can circumvent the security that you've got set up on your domain name. So make sure that you don't give anybody access to this via the IP address. That's just something to kind of keep in mind for good security practices. So the next thing we want to do is actually set up some subdomains for each of these services. So what we're going to do is actually come back over to our Linode dashboard and go to Domains. And, oops, where last modified, I don't know why that one is still there. We're going to delete that one. That's weird. Delete domain. Oh, cancel, refresh. That was weird. It was just cached. No big deal. So we're going to go ahead and just open up tutorialserver.xyz. And then we're going to come down here. We're going to look for our CNAME record area here. We're going to add some CNAMEs. The first CNAME, let's call it Portender. And then let's do @ and then click Save. And then we're going to add another one. We're going to call this npm and @ and then save. And then one more. We're going to call this one PWN for pwn and @ and save. So now we've got our subdomains set up on our Linode so that the Linode can recognize that it needs to do something with those domains. So the next part will actually be getting those subdomains set up in Nginx Proxy Manager. So to do that, we're going to head over here to Nginx Proxy Manager. We're going to go to SSL certificates. We're going to add an SSL certificate and click on Let's Encrypt. For the domain name, we're going to type in, let's do portainer.tutorialserver.xyz, like so, and click Add, and then click Test. There we go. Now we've got this set up. So it says that portainer.tutorialserver.xyz is reachable, so we shouldn't have any issues creating an SSL. So we're going to go ahead and click on Close. We're going to check our email address there. That looks good. And I agree. We'll click Save. So we'll give this a moment to do its thing. We're going to repeat that process for the other subdomains that we created for NPM as well as PWN. Okay, so now we have our 3 SSLs set up and ready to go. So the next thing we want to do is actually head over here to Hosts and Proxy Hosts. We're going to add a proxy host. So we're going to start with, let's do portainer.tutorialserver.xyz and hit enter. So we're going to leave this as HTTP. For our forward hostname and IP, this is where things are going to be a little bit different because we put everything on a single network within Docker. Basically, we're not going to use this 173.255.201.34 IP address. We're actually going to use the internal IP address of our containers. And what we want to do is actually come back over here to Portainer. And here we can see that we've got 172.18.0.3 and 0.2 and 0.4. Those are all on the same network. So this these will be the IP addresses that we're going to use for this. Now, which one did we do? It was Portainer. So what we're going to do is come over here and grab this IP address and put this on port 9000. That'll make sense here in just a moment. We do this like so, make sure that, oops, all of that's good. We'll put in 9000 right there. We can cache or check all of these boxes. Now you could, if you wanted to, make access lists to help restrict access to your domains. If you wanted to do that, you could do that here or via firewall rules in Linode. That's completely up to you on how you'd like to secure your Portainer instance. I'm just going to go ahead and come over here to SSL. I'm going to select my Portainer.tutorial server.xyz. I'm going to check all these boxes and click save. And now, if everything worked correctly, which I'm hoping it did, if I click right here, oh, I typed that in wrong. So let's fix that. I definitely did do that, didn't I? Portainer.tutorialserver.xyz, like so. We're going to click save this time. Hopefully, hey, will you look at that. Now we can get logged into Portainer and we can see that we're on Portainer.tutorialserver.xyz. So now we've got this on a domain name. It's secured with an SSL. That one's good to go. So now with that said, let's go back over and do Nginx Proxy Manager as well. So we're going to come back over to here. We're going to add a proxy host. We're going to do, we're going to do npm.tutorialserver.xyz. Again, we're going to put this on the IP address for NPM in Nginx Proxy Manager, rather. So we're going to grab that IP address, and this one's going to get redirected to port 81. So we're going to paste that in there. We're going to put in port 81. We're going to again check all these boxes or tick marks or whatever. NPM. We're going to select all these options and click save. And again, if I didn't screw this up, I should be able to click NPM right there. And now we can get logged into our Nginx Proxy Manager. And of course, what we're going to do next is come back over here to what we're really here for, and that is PwnDrop. So we're going to type in, we're going to hit add proxy host, do npm.tutorialserver.xyz. We're going to paste that in there. We're going to put this on port 8080. Again, check all the boxes. Oops. Do this and that. And save. Oops. Oh, geez. Click save. And there we go. Now, again, if I click this, it's just going to rickroll me. But we're going to click it anyway just to make sure everything's working correctly. And it did. We're good. So let's close that out. Let's do this. We're doing inspect because I really don't want to type that in. And then do db tech. And now we can log in and do db tech. Oh, right. So here's what's cool about PwnDrop, right? I can come over here and click these icons and I can say, hey, where do I want to redirect people? By default, it's going to go to this URL, which of course is that Rickroll URL. You could change this to basically anything you'd like. It doesn't have to be a YouTube video. You can just redirect this to another URL. The secret path, again, you can change that. And we've got secret cookie names and values. If you want to change those, you can. I don't know why you would, but you could. Click save. Okay, so here we are. We could then click upload and choose a file that we want to use. I'm just going to use this license file right there. And just that quickly, now we have a URL available for our license.txt file. Now, if we want to at any point, we could just click that right there to copy. We can open this in a new tab or a new incognito window and press enter. And there is our text file. So we know things are working the way we want them to work. So let's close this and then let's open this up over here and let's do an alternate file here just as a quick test. So now if we open this, we've got two different files available. So we're going to click cancel since I don't need that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to paste that in again. And there is the DroidCam OBS license.txt file that we were looking at a moment ago. However, remember, we uploaded a second file. So what we can do with that is click on the facade option there. And then again, we're going to open this up and paste that in. And now we've got a completely different file. That's how we can kind of swap out what files we want available and kind of spoof things as necessary. So it's a cool little option that they've got. That's kind of the thing that I really like about PwnDrop is that you can do that. So that's how easy it is to set up PwnDrop on Linode with an SSL, with Portender, with Nginx Proxy Manager, and of course, securing everything along the way. Of course, again, don't give people your IP address that will give them access to everything. Make sure that you secure access to your server as you see fit for your setup. So hopefully you found the video helpful. If you did, do me a favor, give the video a thumbs up. Really would help me out quite a bit. Also, head down to the description for more information about this setup, as well as a link to head over to Linode to get $100 in free credit for 60 days. So with all of that said, I do want to thank you guys for spending part of your day with me, and I will talk to you in the next video.